How do we hear our inner voice? If you're unfamiliar with listening for it, uh, I spent years suppressing it. So there were two ways that I started to be able to hear it. One was the whisper. It was getting quiet and still, being, not doing, which as human beings is very difficult. We often define ourselves by what we do, and we do not allow ourselves to simply be. And I would offer that you take a moment to simply be, exist, and take up space. And in that still point, you may hear the whisper of the voice. Welcome to Body of Truth. I am Rebecca Windsor. Body of Truth was born after years of suppressing my own inner voice. I needed to rebuild my life from scratch. And in making very large changes in my life, I found that in order to make these changes stick, I needed to process them through my body, my physical body, to create new neural pathways so that I actually was changing my physical reality to make these changes stick in my life. I want to give you kind of what has always worked and not worked as I have gone through this process. I'm not much for fluffy stuff, so this is going to be a lot of the practical, tried and true things that have worked for me, and a discussion of why other things may not have worked. And I hope that this provokes in you a beginning of listening to your own inner voice and possibly a self-exploration of your own. So the other way that your inner voice can come to you is the way it came to me was by banging down the door. So you've got the whisper, which requires you to become still and listen for it. Or you've got a strident inner voice that in my case, I worked very, very hard at suppressing for years. And then in the moment of crisis, that door cracks open and it was allowed to completely burst through full force. I had kept it muzzled. I had done everything I could do to keep my head buried in the sand, not wanting to see what was clearly there. I lived in a state of denial and unreality, and basically lies. Lies that we tell ourselves to get along, lies that we hold, that we may have inherited from the way that we grew up, lies that we create to keep the peace. That was definitely my MO, is harmony over everything. Fall on the sword, swallow the grenade of anger, just keep the peace. Sacrifice yourself for peace at all costs, when in many cases, a healthy argument would have been far healthier. So in that moment of crisis, unfortunately, it takes most of us a moment of crisis to power through or allow that crack to happen. My inner voice absolutely smashed down the door and not only showed me the lies that I had been telling and kind of relying on, but also said, you can't keep me down anymore. Now, in my case, it was the voice of my adolescent. It was my rebellious teenage nature. I've always been a little bit of a rebel. That's part of my makeup. And it was kind of my rebellious nature coming through and saying, you cannot keep me silenced anymore. You cannot continue to exist so separated from your true self any longer. And so in that moment of absolute devastation and crisis was also a rebirth and a complete gift. So if you have not opened the door to start to listen to your inner voice, those two techniques may work. Now, I hope that you're not in deep crisis, but if you're in a turbulent time, look a little inward and see if you've got something shouting at you from behind the scenes, and maybe start to listen. And if you're not in a turbulent time, set yourself an appointment for yourself. Even in these busy days, you can set this appointment to take this time, sit somewhere quiet, no music, no nothing. Sit in stillness, close your eyes if that helps, and listen and see who speaks. And I would offer that you'll be surprised at what you may hear. And that's how the door can open. So I hope you found this valuable. And if you did, please subscribe, share it with someone that you think would benefit. You can click down below to opt in for my newsletter, which is where I get a little more down and dirty and explicit. And I upload every day, and I will see you tomorrow.